Okay, we have, we have in a second. Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Shanker-Passero. I am an Associate Director at Temple Small Business Development Center. We help small businesses start and grow with our no-cost consulting and education services. This is a webinar series intended to support small tourism and hospitality businesses as they navigate these unprecedented times as a result of COVID-19 by exploring topics related to operations, health and safety, marketing, risk management, contingency planning, and innovation. We hope to provide meaningful and relevant insight in relation to current small business issues to help you understand and respond to the changing landscape. This series is brought to you by the Center of Excellence for Hospitality Resilience, a joint initiative of Temple University School of Sports Tourism and Hospitality Management and Temple's Small Business Development Center. So for today, we will be doing a panel event, and we have all attendees muted, and we ask that you put any questions that you might have in the chat box, and we will get to them at the end. I'm going to now introduce and turn the floor over to Maree Forbes, who is faculty at STHM, and she teaches destination management and marketing. Thank you so much, Maree, and to all our panelists for joining us today.
Thank you, Jamie. And we look forward to a really good session today. We have 2 and hopefully 3 of the best DMOs in Pennsylvania who have done amazing things through this entire COVID event and are still doing amazing things. We have Chris Barrett, who is the president of the Pocono Mountains Visitor Bureau and has been in the industry for a long time, was with Lancaster and some other places in Pennsylvania, and also has an advertising background. And we have Andrew Miller, who is the executive director of Susquehanna River Valley Visitors Bureau, also been very, very active in this. And I have some questions that I'd like to go over, but I think that what these 2 gentlemen have done for their destinations is so important that I would like to start with Chris, have him introduce himself and talk about some of the amazing things that he's done for his destination. Chris has been the spokesman literally for the entire 4-county region as we've gone through COVID, and has done, I've watched a number of the briefings, done an amazing job and done some other things as well. So Chris, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maree, and good morning to everyone. Thank you for being so kind and for your kind words. We go back good ways, and I'm happy to be here today and honored to be asked to speak to everyone. I think as we navigate COVID, and obviously this isn't over. I'm not sure we're at the end of the beginning yet, as Churchill used to say, but it's really kind of been interesting as we navigate this. And I'll just talk really quickly about my background, and then talk just very, very briefly about some of the programs that we've gone through over the last 3 months. So my background is a good majority of private industry, 20 years with Hershey Entertainment and Resort Company, a number of senior management positions, mostly in the entertainment division, which operates Hershey Park, the Arena and Stadium, and the Giant Center. So my career, and all of that was mostly within sales and marketing and in senior management. I came out of that into the DMO world in Lancaster as president and CEO of the DMO there. Then I went back to private industry and had an advertising agency with a partner, and we operated for 4 or 5 years, and then came back to the Poconos. Actually, I interviewed here for the position 13 years ago, and it was between me and another person. He was selected and I wasn't. It's just weird how life happens, and now I'm back here. Been here for about 4 years, and it's been great. I really missed the DMO world. I missed the camaraderie. I missed the people, and so it was great to be back. As this really came about in March, and started to in mid to late February, a lot of us were trying to find out what our role would be in this new world. And the Pocono Mountains actually is a 4-county area within the Poconos: Carbon, Monroe, Wayne, and Pike counties, which is about 2,400 square miles. They're the size of the state of Delaware. And the Poconos has been around forever. Poconos is actually a Native American word, which means large river between 2 mountains. So that's the history of the Poconos. And the Poconos had always been a place where people would try to escape the cities. In Philadelphia, New York, for instance, in the 17 and 1800s, there wasn't any public sanitation. So people had to get out of the cities to escape disease in the summer, spring and summer, when it would become warm. So we've been a destination forever, and we've been a place where people have always come for respite for a number of different reasons, and part of them were health in the 17 and 1800s. So when this happened, a number of community leaders, I'm truncating this a little bit, came to us and said, we want, because our 4 counties did not have a public health department and did not have public information officers per se. So they knew that we had the tools and we were fairly active locally. And they came to us and said, look, we need somebody who is going to help us flatten the curve. Can you help us? And that was the direction. So we undertook very, very stringent and quick public service campaigns. We used radio, television, digital, everything that was available to us in a 4-county area to help flatten the curve and to try to get the message across that, hey, this is a very serious health condition and we need to be able to take the responsibility individually to mitigate. And that's what we did for a 3-month period of time. Part of it culminated into a briefing that Maree mentioned that we did every week, every Friday. We cut it because briefings were on the national level and the state level, but how did it really affect us in the Poconos? So one of the folks who came together to as a community coalition was ESU, and they have a television studio. So we used ESU's television studio to produce a weekly program that was 1 hour, half an hour to an hour for a 10-week period when we started in the red phase into the green phase. And when we got to green, we stopped it because that's where we needed to be. We covered all types of first the numbers when we opened the program, then every different topic we could think of related to COVID, flattening the curve and getting people to find out what the new normal was. We also have our own television network called the Pocono Television Network that's in 400,000 homes in 11 counties. So we were live on the Pocono Television Network, live on a local channel here, TV 13 on Blue Ridge. And then we were live on Facebook and all the other social media channels. So we totally went 360 degrees, but used the tools that we had developed over a long period of time to first help flatten the curve. That's pretty much what we've been doing. So we went to really trying to get people to be attracted from coming outside the community to visit us, to taking care of our own community locally and helping folks understand, you know, what steps really needed to be taken to flatten the curve. And then about halfway through, is the last part I'll say, halfway through, we realized that there would be, when we went to yellow, a reopening phase and rebuilding phase. So the one part I forgot to mention is our website became a repository for everything COVID, because I think folks had a lot of good intentions in the beginning. So you were getting email after email after email. So we synthesized all the data and put it into a format that people locally needed to know. And we housed it at poconomountains.com/COVID-19. And we also started the local counties came to us and said, we would like you to control our code red system and our outside messaging system in addition to that. So we also did that. And then we hit reopening and rebuilding, we built another site and we got a lot of our members together to provide confidence into what are the steps to reopen. So we went beyond our own membership and offered it to every business within the 4-county area. And we put together a program called the Pocono Promise, which is totally voluntary. Folks can sign up for that program and display all type of signing so that a guest coming in understands that they've committed to adhere to and exceed CDC guidelines in opening and reopening and operating. And then also that they're not only protecting their team members, which is critical, but that they're protecting the public. So all these programs happened in that 3-month period of time. And we collaborated with so many disparate groups within our community that we would have never collaborated with ever, such as our hospitals, our higher education institutions, our banks, in every county office you can think of, including our judiciary. And so it was, and all of our law enforcement. So we started this community collaboration that we're now going to continue as we move forward. And our every week program is actually morphed into a once-a-month program called Pocono Mountains Magazine that we're going to continue to push all of our community collaboration that we built within that 10-week period. So it's been a real roller coaster ride. It's whitewater rapids ride in the last, I'm sure Andrews and Jack have done similar things, but it's been great for the industry. And I think it's been great for people to think, oh, they're tourism people, they don't care. And we really do care about our community. And I think, I'm hoping, I'm sure Jack and Andrews, it's really helped us to elevate the prominence of tourism. And we've been trying to do it for so many years. And now I think they're seeing that how much real employment and economic benefit we generate. So it's been a great experience.
Terrific. So good to hear. Andrew, over to you, and talk about the real-time responses you made when you when you thought you had to have the communication out before Governor Wolf even finished.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, as Chris said, it has been a roller coaster ride trying to navigate this. You know, it's been information overload, just receiving it to figure out what's going on, then trying to decipher how to share that, you know, with your members in your communities and how best to stay on top of it. I'll give a quick background. My Visitors Bureau, the Susquehanna River Valley Visitors Bureau, is regional. It represents Snyder, Northumberland, and Union County in rural central Pennsylvania. Well, when this first happened, you know, it started happening and you were hearing about it, and then all of a sudden it went down the roller coaster really fast. And before you knew it, you know, we had to move away and shelter from home and start working from home. I was very lucky that I have kept all of my full-time employees on remotely ever since this happened. In fact, we probably have never worked so hard in a real-time manner to stay up to date on everything on behalf of our members in our communities, and even non-members. Even though we were member-based, we decided that it was more important to be supporters of small businesses and communities than it was to draw a line that we're only going to help members out. So at the beginning, we were very concerned whether or not we were going to, you know, provide this information overload that we were trying to funnel and understand to our members, thinking, oh my God, are they going to shut down on us? And what we decided is that it would be better to provide them with more information than not enough. And I'm thrilled to say that we have never had a member ever reply to us and say, stop it, you're not providing me with the information that I need. And we do daily updates. We take the Pennsylvania Restaurant Lodging Association update, put our masthead on it at the beginning, at the top, and at the bottom we have hot links to our website going daily for our members. And then for the recent, which was a huge scramble, when we knew that the morning of the 15th, when we heard that the governor was going to announce new restrictions, suddenly in the office here, we went into how are we going to get this information out to our members in real time before the governor even finishes. And, you know, fortunately, there were enough leaks that were coming out prior to the governor's announcement that we knew what pretty much it was going to be. So we literally, I felt like we were like a news station or a newspaper office. We were scrambling to put the message together, and literally right before the governor took any questions, we got it out to our membership in real time. So, you know, like Chris said, the very first thing that we did once when we were home, I was so proud of our staff and our team, is that we knew immediately that we were the organization that had to go to bat and be the ambassadors for small businesses in the area. And I will tell you that it has presented a great opportunity for DMOs to assert and cement themselves as a community stakeholder during this time period. And it provides us a great opportunity. And for an industry that has always fought to be taken seriously as an economic driver and relevant on a community level and not necessarily just be about people 50 miles outside of the region, to be able to sit back and say that you are, you know, the ambassador for your businesses and communities and elected officials, constituents, you know, it helps to build that army behind you that hopefully at the end of the day can sit back and say, you know, the DMO is really there for us. And I was so proud that, you know, our offices closed, I think on March 16th was the last day in the office. And within 1 week, we had up on the website a COVID resource page that had national information, state information, local and county information. And then we started making phone calls right away to figure out how are our businesses open, what are they doing, and what does that mean to get that done in real time to everybody. And within a week after the COVID page, we were driving consumers to all of our members that were open for business so we could get consumer spending to our businesses.
Terrific. And we have Jack Cohen on. Jack, can you hear us?
Oh, Jack, you're on mute.
I'm not. Okay. I sure do hear you.
Terrific. We just heard from Chris, and what I asked both Chris and Andrew to do, and we've heard from Andrew, is basically to introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about what you've been doing through the COVID before we get into the questions.
Well, my apologies to all. I got on a little late. I'm actually just coming up from the beach, so I'm on vacation, but I promised I'd be on. And
Thank you.
I'm the president for Butler County Tourism. I've been doing this with the Tourism Bureau for 20 years. Before that, I was a restaurateur for 30. And so I understand the pains that our restaurants are going through now and trying to help as best we can. For us, as soon as we saw what was happening, we made adjustments quickly. And we knew we had to be that voice. We had to be the ones to let all of our industry know what's going on, sending all the information. I'm on the board of the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association. So we had all the things that the association has put out, and we send them out daily to make sure all of our restaurants, all of our hotels, and all of our partners, you know, from the smallest mom and pop to the biggest retail chains, knew exactly what was going on in our community. And we continue to do that every day.
Fantastic. Okay, now on to the questions. Chris, let's start with you. What are the three main things that the small businesses in your community have really appreciated that you do for them? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I think the first thing really is advocacy. They look to us for having the relationships. I know Jack mentioned the PRLA, Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association, which I have to say has done an incredible job. John Longstreet as the president and CEO is amazing. And working with them and collaborating from an advocacy standpoint has been critical for us, and rallying everybody together within our destination, because as Jack had said, and Andrew, the small businesses were so paralyzed and shocked with what happened. So they look to us to kind of provide some stability and move things forward. So I think that's number one. And number two would be the information. There was so much information hitting everybody. They wanted us to distill it and ask them and to relate to them what they actually needed to know. And I think the third thing was clarification. There were some guidelines that came out that there wasn't a lot of clarity around what the guidelines meant. And for instance, I'll give a simple one that maybe everybody is familiar with. So when we progressed from the red to yellow to the green phase, in the yellow phase, it was clear in the guideline that if your numbers and your capacities in your local hospitals, in your emergency units and ICUs were at a certain point, and your positive case levels were below 50 per day in a 14-day period, you would automatically go to the green phase. You would be advanced to the green phase. Well, that's what the guidelines said. In actuality, it was 21 days because it was announced at the 14th day, and you had to wait another day, or excuse me, 7 more days in the yellow phase to be advanced to green, even though your numbers were good. Well, that was incredibly frustrating to a number of our businesses. So we did have some folks that we were able to talk to get clarity on guidelines. So I think initially our mission was so far outside of our original scope, but they were tools that we had developed over time that we were able to bring to bear. And I think that bringing all the groups together to collaborate to be a larger voice was critical too. In fact, we brought competitors to the table. I'll give you an example. Our 3 large water parks in the Poconos, Kalahari, for instance, is the largest indoor water park in the United States. Great Wolf and Camelback were all competitors until this happened. Then they all came to the table and put together a joint mitigation plan for indoor water parks that we presented to the governor's office, and John Longstreet was alongside us there as well. And first of all, like, who would have said John would have been there? But John came to the table and he was very helpful. We brought our state and delegation in the House and Senate, and we brought competitors together to put a joint mitigation plan that we sent to the governor's office and to Secretary Levine to say, look, we're ready. You know, we want to open, we have plans in place, and here they are. So that's something normally that usually in a member-based organization, you don't talk to competitor. I mean, that's not an issue. That's an issue. So it was totally different in a very, very good way.
Terrific. Andrew, I note that Chris didn't mention anything about the fact that he put up businesses that were opening and all that sort of information that started to come out as visitors could come back. What are your thoughts? What would the three most important things that your small businesses appreciated that you were doing?
The first thing that they appreciated was that all of our member businesses got a personal phone call from us the minute that this happened to find out, you know, are you open for business? What are your hours? Is curbside delivery? As I said, you know, after the COVID resource page that we built, we went right into open for business. And so it was contacting all of our members to figure out how they were open for business and creating a hot link to them from our landing page with a carousel that said open for business so people could click on that immediately. And at first we did it for restaurants, wineries, and breweries. Then we did it for merchants, and then we did it for events. And not only did we have this one page dedicated to them through this hot link, but then we went into their member listing too and updated all of their member listings with the most current information so that wherever you were finding them on our website, you would get the most current information. After that, what we went right into was what we call backyard tourist promotion. And I've been lucky that I've done this ever since I've been the executive director here, which is now 14 years. Instead of National Tourism Week, that happens every week in May, we do Backyard Tourism Week to create an awareness from locals in a big region that can take you 1 hour from one, you know, to get from one to the other, who want a vacation in their backyard, that you need to know what's in your own backyard in order to be a good ambassador for tourism in your own area. And, you know, they say that 44% of the people are visiting their friends and relatives in Pennsylvania. Well, if people in their own backyard don't know what's going on, they're not going to necessarily be able to recommend it. So we always had Backyard Tourism Week the first week in May and had an open house and prizes, and it's been successful. And then when the Great Recession hit in 2008 and 2009, and you heard staycation for the first time, we went right back into backyard tourism. You know, we were accessible, we're easy to get to, we're affordable. It was great for a day trip, for, you know, for an overnight, for a weekend. And so when COVID hit, we luckily were able to pull this whole backyard tourist promotion that we've been doing for years out of our back pocket and went right into that, you know, to get residents to be backyard tourists, because that's where it needed to begin. So part of this backyard tourist promotion was, once again, a new landing page for that. And we created a campaign called SRV Strong, for Susquehanna River Valley Strong, with a logo that basically was, we're in this together, we'll get through it together, we need to support each other, residents and everybody need to be tourism ambassadors and small business supporters, and by being SRV Strong, that was something we could all do. And then we did a summer shopping passport. So in order to get people to businesses, we have 20 regional businesses offering discounts that are good through September 30th to drive people to our small businesses. And we have promoted all of that in local print, radio, and digital marketing. And so through all of that, you know, we didn't cut back, we just fine-tuned our marketing and really focused on the backyard tourist promotion, which is really centered in all of our small businesses. All of our
Terrific. Okay, Jack, over to you. What are the three things that your small businesses have really appreciated that you did?
Well, I think the first thing was to tell them what was real and what wasn't real. The messaging was continually changing, and we had to stay on top of that to make sure they knew exactly what was happening. And we continue to do that still because the messages continue to change. It's just interesting. We're in our community in Butler County, our numbers are very low, but because we border Pittsburgh, the governor also shut us down too the same way. So we've matched everything that his numbers were. We could have stayed open at 100%, but because of our location, he felt safer for us not to be open. And so we have the same issues as the bigger cities. But regardless of that, we needed to make sure our businesses understood that. And then we had to, send their messages off to Harrisburg as well, to let them know we don't understand why you're doing this, and continually going into the governor's office and making sure that they understood it. But more than that, we needed to continue on our mission too, which is to market and promote all of our businesses. And the first thing we told our businesses, one, because we're a dues paying organization, we waived all dues. We wanted everybody to know we don't expect you to give us a nickel. We're here to help you, not to hurt you. And so we did that first and foremost and let them know that we would be the voice to be there for them and do what we needed to do in the back end so they can continue to run their business and not to worry about the things that we can handle for them. Obviously, the things that we do continue to talk about those businesses that can service all the public at this time. We showed lots, we went out and got lots of video, lots of pictures, let people know that the facilities we're talking about are safe, they're clean, and you have an opportunity to go there and, you know, with doing the social distancing and make sure everything is correct the way it needs to be. Continually talk about those things. You know, we'll do 1 week where we'll talk about gift shops and stores and, you know, all those types of things. Then we'll do the restaurants, and then we'll do any other, you know, opportunities like the state parks. Maree State Park is 17,000 acres of open space. People in our community can go out, walk the trails, walk through the park, enjoy the outdoors. And we wanted to make sure that they knew there were things for them to do while they were still here. And that's a very important piece, because if people don't feel safe, and if people didn't feel that the facilities they were going to go to were clean and not kept up, they're concerned, and they should be. But so we really wanted to hit that home, that everybody knew what was going on.
Terrific. Let's move on now to events. What's happened to events? Are you holding any still in 2020? Have you done virtual events combined with in-person? What's happened with events? Over to you, Andrew.
As a Visitors Bureau, we don't really produce any events. However, you know, we're trying our best, because we have so many events in the area, both seasonally and regionally, you know, trying our best to stay on top of that and to communicate whether they're postponed or canceled. I mean, some of the events that we have would be member-based. We're, you know, and board-based. We're doing that through a lot of Zoom meetings. But I think one of the things that we've been really successful has been just staying on top of it. You know, we have a very close relationship. We have 2 universities in our backyard, and a lot of those events, family weekend reunion, you know, orientation, are they going to be open during the school year, is key to an awful lot of the livelihood of our hotels and ultimately, you know, our funding source. And so what we have done is we've cemented the relationship with the universities so that we could let the hotel community and the community at large, because it impacts downtowns too, you know, with retail and restaurants and all of that, so that we literally would get the message from the university the minute a decision was made, and we would disseminate that to our membership immediately. Our hotel community and our downtown communities where the universities are located so appreciated that, because they were getting the answers in real time, and it wasn't any kind of rumors. You know, we are a sponsor of an event with the local chamber, and we've been working with the venue and the event producer, and this is our probably 3rd go around in trying to figure out how to adopt and adapt to the new restrictions. Every time we think we've got this great working model, it changes. And you know, we're looking forward to working with the model that eventually have the event come to pass. But it's worked out really great, because it's allowing people to get together and reviewing the restrictions, which means we're taking them seriously, but then brainstorm and try to come up with it. One of the biggest challenges that we're going to have next year, which is, you know, and I'm already forewarning the staff about this, is an awful lot of the events that have been canceled this year or held virtually by a lot of our members or event producers are going to happen as an anniversary in 2021. So we're going to end up seeing, especially from the universities, you know, 2 years of graduation, 2 back-to-back weekends of reunions and family weekends, and knowing that where this year there's not an awful lot of hotel room usage, next year there could actually be a shortage at some events because they're doubling up. So, you know, talk about, you know, feast or famine. So we're already trying to be prepared to stay on top of everything next year, because, you know, our goal is to get people to hotel rooms and find places to stay. So next year's going to be quite a challenge with events, because I think everyone is going to be extraordinarily loyal to events that are so part of their annual culture and heritage, let alone universities, let alone just downtown fun that they love to have, that next year I think people are going to come out in droves, because they're going to just be so thirsty for that experience again.
Terrific. Over to you, Chris. Have you done combined virtual and in person? Are you doing events in 2020 still? Are you, how have events happened in your communities? Chris, you're on mute.
Sorry, guys. Very, very, very similar to what Andrew had said. We had seen a wholesale cancellation, especially like I would say within the last month. Mostly everything till the end of the year has been canceled. And we also have a very large convention meeting facility here in the market. They're seeing exactly the same thing. Actually, when we went to green and the 250 number was allowed internally and externally, we saw some movement we started to get a little bit of energy for events. And then all of a sudden, when the governor changes to 25% in restaurant capacity, and then of course there were all types of event issues that came along with that, or guidelines that were readjusted, it just totally, they're like, okay, we're done. So it was a wholesale cancellation until the end of the year. And unfortunately, there's some events in the first quarter that are starting to cancel too of 2021. It was interesting in the yellow phase. I'm also on the chamber board here. We were doing some hybrid meetings. So because we had a 25-person capacity limit in person. So we did some hybrid meetings where the presenters were in person and then we were presenting virtually. So we were starting to figure out some ways to do it at a hybrid level in case it was extended, the yellow phase was extended more. So we were starting on that, and all of a sudden we knew that the green phase was coming. So that just kind of all stopped. Although it's interesting, in our community, a lot of the fundraising now with the United Way and a couple of other nonprofit organizations, they're all being done virtually now, like virtual galas, all those types of things, because that's really the sector that's, I think, in most of our communities that's suffering right now. Are not, obviously small businesses are, large businesses are, we all know that they're suffering in those areas. But the third area of suffering really is our nonprofits. They're not raising as much as they did before. And I think we all have to face the fact that there is going to be lagging unemployment when all the stimulus money washes through the system. I mean, we're not going to see a 3% unemployment rate again for a long time, if we ever see it again. And I think we're going to be dealing with high single digit and low double digit unemployment until the first quarter of 2021. Although I do agree with Andrew in the sense that when events do come back, I think people are hungry for that, and I don't think we're going to see it come back to the way it should until there's a vaccine. I think once there's a vaccine, it seems like there could be one shortly within the next few months. Then I do agree with Andrew, we're going to see that ramp up like incredibly quickly to the point where there'll be so much business in certain times of the year we won't be able to handle it. I do agree with that.
Do you, as a bureau, do you coordinate events that are put on by your businesses and organizations?
Do we coordinate any?
Yeah, do you coordinate between the various businesses that do events? Do you coordinate helping them get more synergy for the collective event?
We do, and we have I'll make this really quick. We have something here called Monroe 2020 in one of the counties where we have all the organizations in the community coming together to put together, for lack of a better term, a strategic plan. That was one point that we were organizing a community type event to bring everybody together. But again, as soon as the order changed, done. I mean, so that might not happen till the first quarter of 2021. We have had a lot of organizations come to us and ask us to help them to do certain things related to that. So we're highly visible in the community. So I think people do come to us. Like, we're doing a lot of the marketing and advertising for a lot of our nonprofits. Like, we do all of United Way's work. So on our staff, we have a videographer and 2 news anchors that were previous news anchors in our market for WBRE and WNEP. And then we did hire one of their videographers. So we have a lot of in-house capability because we have our own television channel. So we have the ability to be able to do some of those things. So we have been helping the community a lot with that.
Sounds absolutely terrific. Jack, over to you. Events. What's happened in Butler County, especially since you were closed because of Pittsburgh?
Yeah, one of the biggest events we do, it's a Jeep Heritage Festival. The Jeep was invented in Butler County back in 1940 for the World War II effort. So we do a heritage event, and we get about 35,000 people with their Jeeps every year for 10 years now. And we had to cancel it. First time, 10-year anniversary, we had to cancel the event. Now, we don't run it anymore. We actually started it, but we gave it to the volunteers. And now that's their own nonprofit. And they give all their monies back to the community, which we think is wonderful. But we still work with them all the time. And unfortunately, they had to cancel. But, most of the events for this year are already done. I'm the last holdout. I'll tell you, I'm one of those people that say people need to get out. They need to find a way to get out. And we're holding off. Unfortunately, by the end of this month, I've got to make a decision whether or not we're going to have a motorcycle event in mid-September. And I'm probably going to have to pull the plug because it's not getting any better. And we're going to have to shut that down and hopefully get that done for next year. But those things you have to deal with. And it's our call to make sure people are safe. It's our call to make sure that those events, if in fact that they have to step away for a year, we want to make sure we get them back. And the same for conferences, conventions, and we have a pretty good sized sports market too. And actually last weekend we had a softball tournament because they were allowed to play softball outdoors. And so we had some of the teams have canceled, and it's not our event, but the gentleman who runs the event, he lost 7 teams out of that, and those were all Canadian teams that could come across the border. But we still picked up between 600 and 700 room nights. And, it's a smaller event, but it's a good one. In September, we still have a very large hockey tournament that's still scheduled on the books. We'll have about 140 teams coming in, and we use all the sheets of ice all through the region. And it's a pretty big event. And as of today, they're still scheduled to be here. So we continue to work with them, make sure that the hotels are prepared, and make sure that everybody's ready to go and our restaurants are ready and knowing what the needs will be for these folks. If we can produce that and make sure everybody is set with all the guidelines being followed and everything that we've got to do, we'll continue to take care of these guests. But the truth is everybody that's canceled has already asked for dates for next year. So we haven't lost anything, including some of our conventions. Those that have canceled already have rebooked. And a lot of the wedding business that's a real tough one because, you find out on a Thursday that Saturday's wedding has to be canceled. That's really tough. Try to tell that to the mother of the bride. Good luck with that one. It's really
Indeed.
difficult.
Maree, if I can quick jump in.
Sure, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, I thought of something as Jack was talking. We're actually the title sponsor for a national gravel cycling event called Unpaved at the Susquehanna River Valley. And this is the 3rd year, and it's taken off and it's put us on the map nationally, which has been one of our goals. And unfortunately this year, with everything that's happening, the big question was, could it happen? And it's to be held in October. And we've been working really hard with DCNR and the event producers to figure out a way. And this was the year that registration was going to be at 1,000. And what they've done is, because of the restrictions, they've now limited it to 200. And they have decided to do a lottery basis to get the best of the best. And the interesting thing about it is so popular of an event with gravel cyclists that they are hitting their numbers immediately and actually have a waiting list. So we know that it could change at any moment and the event could be canceled and, up to the October 11th, but we're keeping our fingers crossed. What we've done is actually created a cycling in the Susquehanna River Valley weekend hotel package that we're going after the graveling cyclists that normally would have attended the up to 1,300 on their list to come. And even though they might not make it to the event, but if they do, they can come for the week and get a discount, get a swag bag, all about gravel cycling, and they can train and they can go on the route so they can still have the experience. So that's one of the things that I forgot to mention earlier, that we're working, that is a perfect marriage of events and working with state regulations and DCNR and trying our best, but yet knowing that up until the last minute, it could be canceled.
It sounds like this is very uplifting because within the very dark situation, you're all saying that next year is going to be fantastic, which should be good news for everybody who's listening and who's in the tourism industry at this point, which that's amazing. And one of the things that I want to ask is, what can you do for small businesses they haven't taken advantage of? Andrew, let's start with you.
Well, the challenge is trying to get trying to capture the attention of the small business because they're really suffering, and they're doing on a day-to-day basis. So one of the things that that we are trying our best to do is we're probably in our third round of actually making personal phone calls to keep checking in on them and seeing how they're doing. And it can be hit or miss because you're not quite sure what their hours are, and we're trying to ascertain what the hours are. So it's actually having that real-time connection with them that can be challenging. Once we do, it is golden, because once they hear that voice on the other side of the phone that's like, what can I do for you? I have your back. That really, really, it makes it all worth it just in terms of how we feel. And then they realize that we have their back. So it's connecting with all of them in real time and having that one-on-one connection with them. And knowing that one of the things that I realized, and Chris hit upon this, is they're getting so much information now too, that they're just trying to figure out what is it I need to listen to. And I was on a webinar with restaurants, and you could just tell that they were so overwhelmed, and what they wanted was someone to hold their hand and interpret what yellow and green meant for them. And on the one hand, you're sitting back and saying, well, you're reading the same thing I'm reading, you're smart, you can figure it out. But then when you realize that they're just looking for someone to help them and guide them, then it was a no-brainer for us to do that. And so, it's just trying to do that on a more of a one-on-one basis. And we are continually offer to have members by segment or niche to do a Zoom meeting together just to talk amongst themselves and to brainstorm with us. I wish more of them would say yes to that so we could do it more often, but I know their time is so valuable right now and so precious, and they're just trying to really figure this all out too. So I know that I'm over anxious and optimistic to connect to them all the time, but I know I have to be patient and meet them in their time schedule to connect. But I wish there were more Zoom meetings that we could have for brainstorming, because I think once that would happen, then they would realize that we can all interpret the restrictions together. And I think we could figure out some really new creative ways to make it a win-win for all.
Wow, Jack, how about you with that one? What can you do that they haven't taken advantage of?
Well, I tell you, we want to make sure that any opportunities like the PPP program and any of the other opportunities that are out there for funding for any of our businesses, we're on top of that to make sure we send that information to all of them, because they're going to need help. And everybody in this industry today needs help, including the tourism bureaus. All of us are in the same boat. And it's not just in our, in our state. This is a worldwide issue now. And we all have to understand the hardships that all of our businesses are having. And frankly, as Andrew just said, talk to them. They need to be able to vent to people that understand. And that's who we are. We understand how their businesses are. We understand what they're going through. On the restaurant side, because I've lived it pretty much most of my life, talking with some of these restaurateurs, one of them called me last week and just broke down. After 32 years of business, he's afraid he's going to lose his business. What can I do other than listen and give him opportunities, the things maybe he didn't think about? But just to know that they have someone that they can share their troubles with or their successes, we need to be there for them. Those are vital pieces right now. We're all gonna get through this. We all have to work together to figure out a way to do it. And when those things come across, we'll all be better for what we're doing as a team. And that's very important. We worked with the chambers of commerce, the economic development groups, all those things, because each and every one of us were sending out information. We've all decided to have a clearinghouse. We all did it together so we'd have one source of information, and we're doing that. So that it's less of 6,000 emails, we cut it down to 5,000 instead. But that's important because everybody's sending something every day, and they don't have time for that. They're too busy. If you're a hotel, you're when you're not checking in the guest, you're cleaning a room so you can turn it over quicker. But those things, because of the labor issues, it's very, very difficult today. They're working hard, probably harder than they've ever worked in their life. That's what's happening today.
Chris, how about you? What have people not taken advantage of? What have small businesses not taken advantage of that you can do?
I agree with everything that Jack and Andrew said wholeheartedly. It's the relationship piece now, and that's really big, and the feedback piece. And I even with what Andrew said, I would hope that some more of our folks would take advantage of it. But the ones that do get a lot, we do a lot of the Zoom feedback, and it's just great that people can congregate and get together and share. You know, it's a lot of times it's all they really want to do. I think for the most part, most of our businesses do. One thing that we did do, I know we haven't gotten to this yet, but the second that we knew we were getting it to green, we started to outbound market immediately. So before, obviously between March and the time we went green, we pulled everything. Social media, you know, traditional media, digital, we pulled everything. Except we did PSAs in the interim. The second we knew we were going green, we totally flipped the switch. And we're fortunate that we're actually now advertising in New York and Philly, this market, and Harrisburg, Lebanon, Lakes, New York, digitally and on TV. So we planned for that very succinctly. And we went to our smaller businesses and said, look, this is what we're going to do. So you need to really put some offers on our site. So the second we turn the switch back on, that the guests will be able to get to something and utilize it very quickly. And that's what we did. And they understood right away that we had the ability to be able to do that. And the other thing too, that I don't think Jack or Andrew mentioned was, the one thing I've noticed through this is the innovation of the people within our market. I'm sure Jack and Andrew saw this too. Some of the innovation of some of our businesses, small and large, especially small because they can react so quickly, was amazing. And we actually use that to help other small businesses to say, look at what these guys are doing. You know, they've risen to the occasion. And like, for instance, we had 2 distillers that immediately figured out, wait a minute, I can make hand sanitizer, because that's part of what our licensing is in a distillery. And we have the ability to, and right away they were making hand sanitizer, one of our folks, and then they were giving a small hand sanitizer because they ordered the vessels to dispense it, and they were giving one of those with every takeout order of food. I mean, it was just like, when one thing would pop up, it was like smack a shark, they would do something else and they would overcome it. And that was the other thing we wanted to do, was tell the good stories, because there was so much bad news everywhere you turn. It's like, we have to give hope and we have to tell the good stories. And we actually position those to people outside of our market too, so they could see how innovative, you know, our people were when they visited us. So now I think it's building more relationships, which I hope are going to be fruitful in the future.
Andrew, I believe you kicked in your outbound marketing pretty quickly as well.
Yeah, what we decided to do, honest to God, we had a board meeting about a week before it all hit the fan, to be honest about it. And they were more or less, well, let's wait and see. And then the minute it happened, it was like, where do you cut back? And thank God I've got a board that did not want the marketing. Now, certain marketing we wanted to cut back and print right away. But in terms of marketing, we didn't want to go radio silent, for lack of a better phrase. So we immediately switched to digital, and we wanted to get in the forefront of everyone's mind. So when they were done with sheltering at home, that ideally we would be a location that they would feel safe and accustomed to going to and have a desire to go to. And I literally, one of the first webinars, and believe me, there were about 10 webinars a week when this began. Webinars were exhausting to try to figure out not only what to do as an industry, but the biggest challenge for us as DMOs is we had to figure out, you know, all the niche industries, restaurants, breweries, wineries, hotels, retail, you know, so you're trying to be the expert for all of that individually. Then as basically, you know, a nonprofit with a small staff, I had to figure out, what am I applying for? How am I going to be heard? You know, do I have to let people go, unemployment, PP, all of that? So it was really overwhelming. But the thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that, for one reason, my battery's running low. Hold on. We wanted to make sure that we didn't skip a beat in terms of it. So we really wanted to get in the forefront of everybody's mind is, think about us now, plan now, visit us later. And we've continued that. And I'm happy, you know, that our efforts have been very successful, because originally back in March, the hits to our website were down by 23%. And every month we've been able to bump that up. And right now we're down about 5% from last year. And next month we plan to break even. And the month after that, we hope to be ahead of where we were last year. So it's paid off. And we've continued to do digital marketing about backyard tourism and where's your summer fun, and later is sooner, and that stuff. So it's really paid off. And we're one of the few DMOs that have decided to take a deep breath and do a pared down version of our annual guide, because there's still the demographic out there that wants print.
Okay, we have only a few minutes left. Jamie, do we have questions from the audience at this point?
I'm not seeing any in the chat, but everyone on board can feel free to post them in the chat right now while we wrap up. I'm also going to post a link to a 4-question survey that's required by our funders. I'm going to post that in the chat.
And we will be issuing a white paper tomorrow. Caridman will be issuing a white paper tomorrow, capturing these notes as well as some other research I've done with with probably 20 other DMOs across the country about what they're doing. There's 20 points of things that DMOs are doing, and then that is supplemented with 10 points of things that that the businesses can do for themselves. So while we're wrapping up, Andrew, let's start from you with any final words of advice. You're muted.
Oh, okay.
Any final words of advice for the small businesses in your community?
Yeah, for the small businesses community, I would make sure to understand who are your ambassadors, who has your backs. I would include Chambers of Commerce and Visitors Bureaus on that list, and reach out to your DMO and find out what are they doing. If you're already a member of your DMO, take a deep breath and pick up the phone and talk to them and ask them what they're doing. I think if you aren't already aware, then you would be surprised everything that we can do. And we're not just about tourists and visitors. We're about driving consumer businesses to our communities and to our small businesses, knowing that that's where it begins, because people will get out, spend their money locally, then they'll go to the next town, then the next town, then the next, then they'll get out for day trips. And it begins at home, it begins in your own backyard, but that is where DMOs are part of economic drivers. And now more than ever, we are uniquely positioned to be part of the economic recovery, and it begins at home and on Main Street and neighborhoods. And we're there for our small businesses. We're the backbone for supporting small mom and pops and all of our member businesses. I mean, our only goal is success. And to drive consumers to our businesses. And that's a great goal to have. And I think, as Jack said, and as Chris said, I think collectively we're going to find out really new and innovative stuff that are going to become standards in 2021 and beyond. And I think when we get through this, I'm confident, I should say, that we're going to have new partnerships and relationships. And I think we'll change the face of how important DMOs are for communities and businesses and hopefully elected officials, both local and statewide.
That is lemonade out of lemons. Jack, your final words of advice.
I think, we all have to continue to think of something new and different. We have a Pro-Am golf tournament coming up in September. Golf is a great thing now. We're able to get people outside. They can golf, and they're going to have a great tournament. But we also came up with a different one, a variation of that, where we have all our brew pubs. There are 16 of them. And they're on each of the holes, as they golf. So they're getting samples of beers as they're golfing. We sold that out in 3 days, and people are going to have some fun. But the idea behind that is to get people out, let them know that you don't have to be locked in a dark room. Yeah, there's some difficult things. We can overcome this if we're smart enough, and I'm sure we can deal with this. And once we're done with this, there's nothing else that's going to get in our way, because we're all ready to go.
Terrific. Okay, Chris, wrap it up for us.
What can I say? My learned colleagues are right on target, and I wholeheartedly agree with them. So everything they said is right on target. And I would just say that as DMOs, as Andrew said, and Jack, please reach out to us. We want to help and care about the vitality of our communities. Without our local communities and their products, we don't need to be here. So we want to help and support them as much as possible. And think about us a little bit differently than you normally have. And we want to talk to everybody and build a relationship. So I agree with everything that's been said.
All right, thank you all. Andrew Miller from Susquehanna Valley, Jack from Butler County, and Chris from Pocono Mountains. And Jamie, thank you for hosting us, and for everybody listening in. If you have questions after this send them on and we'll answer them. I appreciate from all three of you the best 3 DMOs in Pennsylvania, and we'll wrap it up from there.
Thank you. An honor to be here. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Really
I'm gonna get back
appreciate
to
all
the
of your
meeting.
expertise.
Happy vacation, Jack.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Good to
Bye-bye.
see everybody. Thank you. Stay strong.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So the survey link is in the chat, as well as the link to other resources that the SBDC is offering. Our next hospitality resilience webinar will be on August 5th, and that will be on keeping hospitality in touch with touchless service. So hope to see you then. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.